Hello there. Thing. This is weird. I haven't done a solo stream in a long time, and never done something like this before. Hi everyone. Um, I am here today to try to sell you my timeshare. It's going to be a 2 hour presentation. No, I'm just kidding. Hi, I am Sean, also known as the Kraken King on Twitter and Twitch and pretty much everywhere else. And I'm here to talk about my game. Oh, let me minimize that. My game Carbon Banner. This is something I've been working on for a while. I meant to look up exactly how long I've been doing this for, but it's been a bit, over a year, I think. Just making sure everything is coming through okay on Twitch. If there's any issues, let me know. If you're watching this later on YouTube, don't. uh, so yeah, what I'm gonna go over some stuff. I'm gonna talk about the book here. Nothing is like finished. Still very much working on it. This isn't a final product in any means, by any means, but it's definitely something I'm very excited about. We're gonna be running a one shot using this system on Monday, so definitely come watch that. It's gonna be at 8:30 Eastern here. And I'm going to be talking about this for a little while. I don't know exactly how long. I may do my like game prep for that here in a bit. Kind of go through that stuff, and but mostly I'm just going to kind of go over the game so that anyone out there who's interested can check this out, either live as we get more people in the chat, or later on YouTube. So yeah, Carbon Banner. What is it? This is a Powered by the Apocalypse system game. We've run it once before on the channel, a few months back. God, it's been a while. And it was a lot of fun. I've tweaked it a lot since then. If you watch that, there are a lot of changes, a lot of differences that you'll probably notice. We didn't really go like heavily into the rules during that game. It was mainly just a chance to actually see the system at work during our first kind of official play test. But yeah, it's a mech fighting game. I should say first, using the Powered by the Apocalypse system. Kind of similar in theme to like, most of my inspiration came from the Gundam franchise anime. Since I grew up on that as a kid, and a lot of other, mostly anime-based inspirations. I think that's where most of the material for this genre comes from. But yeah, that's where kind of my themes come in. If you have watched anything like that, I know a lot of people like me in the late 90s, early 2000s got introduced to that, and a lot of anime by Gundam Wing was kind of the popular ones. Bunch of pretty boys flying around in big robot suits, smashing each other and crying a lot. And it's that's kind of my inspiration for this game. And you'll probably see that pretty evidently going through. So what I'm going to do is kind of go through the book, talk about what you can expect from it, what it's looking like right now. There may be more developments as we go. I'm going to talk about the playbooks and kind of my thoughts behind a lot of those. And then, yeah, I'll talk about the game that we're going to be running on Monday. And I'll kind of take you through. Towards the end of the book, I've got this section for game masters to go through and how to like prep a session. And I'm going to try to follow that the best I can for the session that I'm going to be running this week as sort of a proof of concept for it. So anyway, I should probably start with Powered by the Apocalypse itself. The Powered by the Apocalypse system is fairly new. Came out, I want to say it was like 2016, with Apocalypse World. It's a 2d6 system, so 2 6-sided dice. Roll those, add a modifier, a stat, any bonuses, similar to any other game you might play, like D&D and things like that. But the difference between the Powered by the Apocalypse games and game D20 based games like D&D is that it doesn't have a moving target. So In D&D, as you level up, your like the difficulty of checks that you make will increase as well, and it's sort of arbitrarily decided by the GM as the game goes. In Apocalypse World, or any Powered by the Apocalypse system, the game is instead going to be every roll you make is going to have some pre-existing success and failure conditions. So anytime you roll a 6 or less, is going to be a miss. Anything 7 and higher is going to be a hit or a success. And those are divided into like mixed successes, which is anything from 7 to 9, and a full success, which is 10 and above. And that's basically it. That's the entire game. And this Carbon Banner is going to follow that pretty much to the letter. I played a lot of these Powered by the Apocalypse games, and I've borrowed a lot from those. And I think that's kind of the nature of the Powered by the Apocalypse system. Everyone just keeps borrowing off each other every time they make a new game. You look at Apocalypse World, and then how that evolved into like Dungeon World, and Dungeon World creates this like bond system and some more he kind of expands on kind of the inner party play and sort of the relationships between people, and then you see how that develops into games like Masks and Monster of the Week, which we actually play here today in a couple hours, so you should check that out too. And all these games have the same sort of element of being sort of deeply personal, which is one of the reasons why I chose it for Carbon Banner, because I didn't want. There are a lot of other like mech fighting games out there, and I'm like RPGs that I won't like blacklist them or anything. I'm not going to give my thoughts on them too much, but a lot of them have this like preconception, I think, that anything that involves like fighting robots and stuff has to be super granular, and you have to have like a lot of stats, and you have to have different mechanics for each element of like running a machine, and it gets like super bogged down in that. And anyone who has watched and enjoys the like fighting anime and enjoyed like I have a list of stuff here. Like the Gundam franchise, like I was talking about. Neon Genesis is another one. Code Geass is one that I've enjoyed. Even like Power Rangers, Voltron, video games like BattleTech, Titanfall, Armored Core. Things have to be fast moving and punchy. And the problem with converting that into a ARPG, a tabletop game, is the more you add to it, the more mechanics you give, the slower everything goes, and it just gets boring. So that's what I've tried to do here. Another big thing, the inspiration I pulled from is from the Gundam franchise, and from a lot of these is that even though the shows are about like these big machines like fighting each other and hitting each other with like photon swords and crap like that, it's always more about like the pilots and the drama that they have. And like I said, with like Gundam Wing, a bunch of pretty boy pilots who are like traumatized and like child soldiers. And even look at one of the more recent Gundam shows, Iron Blooded Orphans, which is like a big popular installment, or Gundam 00. It's very much about like the trauma that these children usually go through. I didn't make this game, and you'll see this when I get into the pilots. I didn't want to make this about a bunch of kids in these machines, which is typically how the anime goes, because that's kind of how the genre works. Is a bunch of it's meant to appeal to a younger audience, so they want younger protagonists. I didn't do that in this because that felt weird. I've talked a lot about that. You've got players who are going to be playing pilots. They're going to have their playbooks, like any Powered by the Apocalypse system. And then you've got the GM, who's called the Forecaster. In this, I borrowed that inspiration from Gundam 00 as well. Forecaster is running the game, gives the pilots missions. Pilots go on those missions and get sad and cry and that kind of stuff as they go. I think all the trauma that I want is going to be baked into individual games. I don't want it, and there's already going to be some elements of trauma for the characters. I just didn't want to envision like kids and stuff in this as well. That would have been a lot. So anyway, so I've got my introduction here at the beginning. This may expand or contract as we go, going to playing the game, and this goes over the basics. A lot of this I've already talked about just now. So says kind of what you need. Game is meant for 4 players or so. 2d6 dice. Everything in the game, and like most Power by the Apocalypse game, everything is classified as moves. So anytime you are doing something, you are making a move, and there is going to be some sort of mechanic behind that. You roll the dice, you get and you follow the instructions typically. I've already gone over hits and misses. So this first part of the game is really just kind of your basics in how to run a Powered by the Apocalypse system. Even though these games have been around for a while, sorry, I'm getting a message here. Even though these games have been out for a while, I think it's really important to kind of continue to state those things, because you never know when it's going to be the first time somebody's played a game like this. Okay. So this is going to go over all of that stuff. Gives the basics like forward and ongoing, which are some mechanics in this games. And you'll find that, again, this is a very brief section going over all the these mechanics is pretty much everything you need to run the game. Short, sweet, to the point. I didn't want to like belabor it too much. I may add more as it goes. At some point, we're going to get into playtesting where I give this out to like another person to run, to be the forecaster, and get an idea of how they feel about whether this is enough or whether I need to explain more. But for the most part, all my playtesting so far has been me running the game and trying to nail down the playbooks, because it gets really hard when you give a game to somebody to run, and then I think the playbooks need to be, and the player side of things need to be like super tight and in place first, because if you get a new GM or forecaster in this case, and they're trying to run a game and there's a bunch of crap wrong with like the player side, it can get a little overwhelming. So one of the cool elements of this that we can talk about is despair and bounty. These are unique mechanics to this game. I borrowed a little bit from other Power by Apocalypse games, but I've revamped them for my own. Bounty, I'll talk about first. This is this game's form of XP. I originally had this as kind of a sense of like your experience points for blowing something up, but I wanted it to have more weight in game and more like narrative depth, rather than just being like, you gain some experience and we move on. And this is like, and it's a super like meta element to the game that has like persisted since very old school tabletop RPGs. But I decided in this case, I'm going to identify it as their fame and notoriety. As this increases, you improve and you get different options, and you can get more sort of more powerful as a result. So that's what bounty is. Bounty equals XP. Despair is something in between experience and something else. One of the mechanics that I think was introduced in Dungeon World was that when you failed a roll, you gained an experience. So if you rolled a 6 or less, you gain experience points, and that kind of keeps things moving forward. It gives some sort of positive element to failing a roll. Whereas like if you play a game like Dungeons and Dragons, when you fail, typically nothing happens, or something just like bad happens to you, and it can get into this frustrating point is as a player being like, I gotta really optimize my character, or else I'm just gonna fail a bunch of rolls and nothing's gonna happen. My character's gonna die. One of the aspects of Apocalypse World and most Power by the Apocalypse systems is that even when things go bad, interesting things happen. And that's a super important thing. It's something that's really integral to like modern game design. That reason why people are kind of moving away, I think, from games like uh, uh, Pathfinder and even some elements of D&D. I know 5e is still the most like popular tabletop game, but people are looking for other things because it gives some more interesting kind of narrative elements to it. So despair is the trauma that I was talking about. When you roll and miss, you gain a point of despair, and this is sort of articulated as something bad happens to you, and your pilot's getting frustrated. Here I describe it as a marker of the mental and spiritual toll that adversity and failure takes on the pilots. In the same way, damage is a marker of their physical strain. You will gain despair. Each pilot has a 5-tick despair track in their playbook. So every time you fail a roll, you mark a despair, and that increases until you have 5. And once you have your 5th point of despair, each pilot has a despair move, some sort of ability that they have that they can do. They can cash in those 5 points to do. We'll go over those in a minute. They're usually kind of powerful, kind of the more narrative based. You don't have to roll for them. It gives you some sort of benefit boost, something kind of like you pushing through that despair and that trauma to overcome a struggle. Once you do that, you reset your despair back to 0 and start over again, and you get a bounty as a result. So this has a twofold thing. One, it keeps some more interesting narrative, and it keeps more things happening in the game. And the second sort of thing that I like about this system is that it gives an extra level of progression to the game, that you generate XP just a little bit slower in Dungeon World and Monster of the Week and some of these other Powered by the Apocalypse games that have taken this mechanic of like you fail a move, get an XP. People end up progressing like really quickly. I think in a lot of our games where we play systems like that, people are leveling up like once a session, or improving once a session, which is good. I think that's a good pacing for game design. But you don't want people to outpace each other by leaps and bounds over the other. So this kind of adds, if somebody has a really bad game and they fail like every roll they make, this still kind of adds like another gear to this to help sort of stagger it a bit more. Plus it's fun. And I think our players really enjoyed it the last time we played this game, and I'm interested to see what they think about it this time. So moving on with the book, and I don't know if we've gotten any more people in the chat, but if you have any questions or anything you want to bring up, definitely pose those. Anything that you want covered, or just questions you have for me, definitely let me know, and I'll answer those. And yeah, who doesn't love leveling up? And again, like my goal is not to be like, oh, I think people should only level up like once per, 5 sessions or something. Yeah. But yeah, I agree. You want that carrot for players to proceed. You want them to feel like they are constantly improving, or else a game is really gonna fall flat. But you also you don't want to get too much where people are getting overwhelmed. So yeah, this section of the book is going to go through the first session. This is pretty typical to any Powered by the Apocalypse game. It talks about like, what do you expect in the first session, what you should do, what steps you should follow, all that kind of stuff. The one of the things that this talks about in passing, but is a pretty integral point to the Powered by the Apocalypse games, is that only one player can select each playbook. So unlike D&D, where you could have a whole party of bards or something silly like that, in this game you can only have one ace, one veteran, one maverick. Playbooks can only be used by one player at a time. You can change playbooks later on, and they can shift around, but everyone should feel unique and kind of special during the game, because that's what we all want from playing role-playing games, is to feel unique and special. So yeah, goes over that basics of the game, go over the playbooks, talk about it with your players if you're the forecaster. If you're a player, look at the ones you want, shout out the playbooks that are interesting to you, bounce off ideas, and then separate. Decide what you want to do, make your character, and then come back together, talk about it, go over your ties, which I'll get to in a minute. Play a little, run a mission, have a fight, that kind of stuff. Super casual. Next session goes into some of the combat rules. So I kind of agonized a bit over how to organize this book, and it may change a couple more times as we go. But I think I've found when I get into a rule book for the first time, I really want I want to get into the rules. I want to get to the meat of the character customization is at the top of my list too. And that's what I initially had next in this book, but I decided to move all kind of the rules stuff in front of it because I think that helps inform the playbooks. If you start reading the playbook and then get to a bunch of stuff, you're like, I don't know what this means. Then you keep having to go back and reference things. That can get a little aggravating. So I put a lot of the rules here, not all of them, but at least the ones that I think you need in order to understand what the playbooks are saying. Goes over kind of combat in this game, which combat in Powered by Apocalypse is not like rolling initiative and then your turn. It is more loose, freeform, more narrative. Something will happen. The forecaster will make a move, will give some sort of dilemma, and then the pilots get the chance to overcome it, to decide okay, I'm going to do something here. Forecaster has the job to make sure that somebody isn't just running the show and just doing everything, unless that is what is called for by the narrative, by the story that's being told. But no, there's no initiative or anything like that. I saw there was one mecha game that I was looking at that was Powered by Apocalypse, and then they added in an initiative system to it, in a turn order, and I didn't like it. It was, I don't know. It's not something that I really want in this game. I thought about it. I have seen it done now. I don't like it. Not planning on doing it. So it goes into size categories, which is actually a big mechanic in this game and something that is not, I don't think is in any other games. I think I made this up, but I don't, if it does exist out there somewhere and somebody else had this idea first, I am unaware of it. But basically there are size categories and tags that each of the machines are going to get. The side categories go from person, which is, as the name suggests, person sized, which is a big variety. People come in all shapes and sizes, but roughly any person is going to be anything under 10 or 15 feet tall. So the next size category is small, which is smaller vehicles, the size of a car, small truck. Large, 4 or 5 story buildings, cruise liners, cargo planes. Massive is this is where we get into more of the fantasy. Yeah, you can quote me on that. I think I made this up. Massive things, when you get into more of the grander elements of this sort of genre, these are machines and things made of the size of the Empire State Building or the Eiffel Tower, and then colossal machines are the size of moons, major cities, and just about anything else too large to sort of conceptualize. The reason why this is important, and it's a simple system, is that if you are, for every size category you are bigger than something, you deal an additional 1 damage. So a colossal space station that has a big laser cannon, so basically the Death Star, if the Death Star is colossal and the Millennium Falcon is large, the Death Star is going to do an additional 2 damage to the Millennium Falcon, where the Millennium Falcon is going to do minus 2 damage to the Death Star. So it's easy. It's not too hard to understand, I don't think. And this is important because I didn't want to just say, well, I'm going to just give bigger machines more damage. Because if I just start giving the bigger machines more damage, then I go, okay, well, then I've got to get the bigger machines more armor to make up for the more damage for when they fight those bigger machines. And then the numbers just start getting too big for this system. And I end up with like a machine that's doing 20 damage or something, or I mean, in comparison to this, it'd be like 7 damage, and then has like 5 or 6 armor or something like that. And that's a lot to do and to keep track of. I think I don't like big numbers. I like small numbers because I can count that high. The one of the other new things here, and this is something that was in conditions, were in Dungeon World, and I wanted to use those too. Pilots get the opportunity, if they take damage at any point, they can reduce that damage to 0 and take a condition instead, or a GM can decide, well, instead of giving you damage, I'm just going to give you a condition. It's another way of hindering a player who takes a hit or does something dumb or fails a roll or something like that, without it always just being like, okay, you take 2 damage, you take 1 damage. That can get a little boring in the system, especially when pilots can only take 4 damage to begin with. And this outlines exactly what the 4 are, and they all just coincide with a ongoing penalty to to one of their stats. That is a misspelling. I'm going to fix that. So this goes over the basics of damage, like I was just saying. Pilots can take 4 before they die. If you die, you can choose to stay dead or kind of come back. This was something that was in Apocalypse World, where just because you have taken your 4 damage and died, it doesn't mean you're really dead until you decide you're dead. And so you can choose to come back weaker, slower, shaken, or depleted, and take a permanent -1 to one of your abilities. It's rough, but it's a way to keep going and provide some narrative ramifications. You can do those. You can mark off each of these once before you have to actually stay dead. So you get essentially 5 lives. So pikes, which is the name for the mech. I'm probably going to add a section in here before this that kind of talks about what a pike is or something, so that word doesn't just come out of nowhere. But pikes, the mechs, can take 6 damage before they're destroyed, and then they can be rebuilt because you have that technology. And this talks about what the ramifications for taking damage are. That's another old system I'm going to remove. Catching all sorts of things going through this. Like I said, I'm still working on it, and there's a lot of things that are coming up. So this talks about basically what the nature of pike damage, what it looks like, how you can describe it, what that damage relates to, because a number is just a number. You need to have something to compare it to. So yeah, we'll go through the character stuff now, because I think that's the more interesting thing. How long have we been going for? Okay, not bad. The talks about the ability to change playbooks, future sessions, all that sort of stuff. So then we go into character creation, which I'm anticipating a lot of people will just skip to. The 4 attributes in the game are fight, mind, skill, and luck. Fight is kind of related to strength or constitution in D&D or D20 based systems. Mind is your intelligence, your wisdom. Your skill is your dexterity. It's here described as your raw talent. The skill is the ability that you use to show how good of a pilot you are, in actually maneuvering your machine. And then luck is your uncanny presence, good fortune, and charisma. Initially in the last system I had skill be the charisma stat, is the talkie stat, and then luck was just uncanny presence and good fortune. That skill, I think, became a little too powerful. Skill was a lot of stuff, and luck was just sort of this tenuous thing that only related to a couple of playbook moves. So I changed it. luck has some more kind of more real connotation to it now. And then it talks about how to create your character, and we get to the playbooks. So there are 8 current 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 current playbooks in this game. We've got the Maverick, the Rookie, the Veteran, the Tactician, the Gifted, the Brute, the Gambler, and the Masked. You'll notice 2 things if you played with us last time, or if you've seen this before. Before, I had the Maverick and the Ace as 2 playbooks. I have gotten rid of the Ace, and actually kind of the Maverick has consumed the Ace, and I've taken the best moves from both and created one class. Because when I really thought about it, I initially created like the Maverick playbook to be kind of like the Top Gun Maverick, sort of, where they don't play by the rules, they're free spirited, and the Ace was kind of their counterpart, which was also like a good pilot, but they did sort of play by the rules, and they had a very like set in stone way of doing things. And I realized when I really thought about it, they're both really good pilots, and both of their like defining features are like, we are the best pilots. So I decided there doesn't really need to be a different playbook for Tom Cruise and Han Solo, or Tom Cruise and I need an Ace. Thinking about a good comparison. The main character in Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans is a good example of that. The protagonist is kind of stoic but an awesome pilot. There didn't need to be one for both. The Maverick is just the Ace who wasn't disciplined enough as a child. I've taken the 2. I see Alex in the chat he played the Ace in the last playbook, or in the last one shot that I ran. I think most of the good moves are in there. I'll actually go through the Maverick in a bit, and we'll go through that first, and I'll show kind of what I have kept there. So all the playbooks are going to have basically the same layout. We're going to have the name at the top, a little bit of flavor text. We're going to go for stats, moves. It's going to talk about your despair move, ties, starting gear, and then your pike creation. A couple of differences here. I've added some more moves to all the playbooks. Despair move looks a little bit prettier now. And the pike creation is a big change up here, is because initially I had all the playbooks in their own specific like chapters, and then I had a separate chapter in pike creation. Everyone followed the same rules for making their pike, and you could be a brute who made a really sleek and fast pike, or you could be an ace who made a super bulky and heavily armored machine. I haven't changed it much, but I have incorporated the creation into the classes themselves. So I have pared it down, I've taken out some stuff, and I've just added it into the class. You'll find in my players, and they look at it, we'll see that the only real difference is that I've just taken out some upgrade options. Some upgrades are only available to specific classes, and some upgrades are pretty widely available. That's really the only big difference here. The other difference is that initially each playbook had their pike had a special trick, which I let the players design and sort of define themselves. And it was like, oh, help with your DM come up with it. And that was fun, but I also realized that was way too ambiguous for a game like this. And it got to be, I think it was a little cumbersome, and they just didn't do as much as I thought. We had one player who had their pike be able to turn invisible, which was cool. I think that was Alex's. Had the ability to turn invisible, which is awesome. And it came up a lot. And then we had other people that had pikes that could do things like talk to them, and that like never happened. So, it just it didn't have a lot of like weight to it as a game. So I have created unique abilities for each one of these. The Maverick has the Corvette drive with their pike, which allows them to automatically take a plus 10 plus when trying to stunt or do battle once per mission. So you can just kind of kick on the overdrive and succeed in one thing. It gives you a little bit of there's a downside on the other end of it, but it can help you out in a tight spot. I'm gonna backtrack here a little bit. So each of the players will, when they start, they'll pick their stats from one of these arrays, and then they'll pick 3 moves. Some classes say you get this move and then you pick 2 more, and some classes just say you can just pick any of the 3. That just really depended on whether I felt there was a move that was integral to the class. I'll actually go through the Masked, which is a new playbook that I've created. That's the second thing that I was saying you might notice looking at the 8. It's a new playbook that I've added. It has one very specific, important move that I don't think the class would be the same if you didn't take it. So that is a requirement, and then you get to pick 2 more. So yeah, each one of the moves kind of has the same formula. It'll give you, I came up with names for these, usually very late at night, was things I thought were funny. I don't know how funny they ended up being. And then you will, you add those to your playbook. So I've designed these so that you can just like print out your own copy and then just like check things off and circle things. So you don't need to like make a character sheet. This playbook kind of becomes your character sheet. So you pick 3. I can go through some of these. I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. The Maverick is all about being a very good pilot and pushing against the rules. So they've got this move, Rebel with a Cause, gives them a +1 forward if they are deliberately disobeying a superior or someone who's telling them what to do. Dogfight, where they can lock in an enemy and engage them in solo combat, kind of force them into a combat situation. Danger Zone, which is a bonus they get to stunt rolls, where they can avoid consequences. Stunt is one of the basic moves, which I'll go through those in a little while. Let's see. A couple of these are ones I took from the Ace. Let's see. Ace in a Day was one of them. Dogfight was one of them. Sharpshooter, Need for Speed, and Flyboy were all Ace moves. There's actually less of the Maverick here than there was. It ended up being less of the Maverick than there is of the Ace in this playbook. The only reason I went with the name Maverick instead of Ace is because I liked it better. So I could have flipped a coin. Didn't really matter either way. But I love Top Gun, and I wanted that reference to be in this. So you'll see a lot of this is taken from the Ace, and then they've got their despair move, which I can use as an example here. So every pilot has something like this, which specifies when you fall into despair. So when you've checked all 5 boxes, and the Aces specifically says, do something reckless or impossible to prove that you're alive. Whatever it is, you succeed without question, but someone dear to you pays a heavy cost. And then all of them will say, reset your despair, take 1 bounty. So what you'll notice here is that there's no roll attached to it. You just do it because it takes so much to get to that point. It's 5 failed rolls that you've accumulated. It's just something that you can just do and succeed at and be good at. So the Ace is all about the Maverick is all about pushing the limits. So I said that should be their despair move. When they have gotten to their lowest point, what they're going to do is they are going to do something even dumber to show that they have what it takes, and they're going to do it, and they're actually going to get through it, because that's what happens in movies and TV, and they get to that point where they have given up on everything else, where they have failed so much, and then they're just going to do something incredibly stupid, and they're going to succeed. There might be fallout for it later, but they're gonna do it. So and this is kind of left for the forecaster to sort of, I guess, mitigate or kind of adjudicate. If somebody says, I do it without question, and they say, I rob a bank or something like that, that might be a little too much and involve too much for like prep work, and be a little too attenuated for a single move, or some some forecasters might be like, yeah, you do it. You go in, you blow up the vault, and you take the money or something like that. So that just depends on your style as a forecaster. Every playbook has their ties, which is taking from the bond system. It's probably actually closer to the it's kind of a combination of bonds and history from Apocalypse World. It's like bonds in that they have a specific kind of fill in the blank element to them, some element of their backstory, or you can write your own. The only reason they're not exactly like bonds is that I don't have a system for like resolving them to gain bounty. If you have a tie with somebody, you can interfere with them or aid them by adding plus the ties that you have with them, and you can write new ones as you go. You get your starting gear, which most playbooks start with a backpack, rations, credits. It's a backpack because every game you have to have a backpack. I have never played a friggin' RPG where you did not have a thing to carry your shit in. So I thought, hey, why not? Backpack, 5 rations, credits, which is the form of currency in this game. 2,000 because inflation. And you start with body armor, custom clothing because you're the Maverick and you've got cool digs. And then an energy blade or a blaster pistol. Those weapons are described back in the equipment section for like how much damage they do, things like that. And then Lucky Charm, which you can use to give yourself +1 luck once per session. Then we get into the pike creation. This is a big change from what I've had before, so I'll go ahead and get into some of the things that I've changed more severely from the previous iteration of this game. So in the last installment of Carbon Banner, all of the machines had their own stats like handling and power and speed. And then there would be specific machine moves where you rolled and you added the machine stats instead of the pilot stats to them. So there was like a whole separate element or separate game within this game, and it was a little much. It was one of those ideas that I had up front. I was like, this is really cool, and so like you can fine tune your machine to have certain specifications to make up for where you lack, or something like that, or to emphasize your abilities. And I was as we got into it, we played it, and there was a lot of questions like, okay, so I'm rolling handling here instead of skill, or do I roll fight? And wait, does this move apply to? Can I use this pilot move instead of my machine move? And so there's a lot of that, and I realized it's too much. Machines aren't going to have their own stats; they are just going to enhance. Essentially, the pilot stats are the same stats in or out of the machine. So if you've got a big fight and you're good at shooting things, your machine is going to be good at shooting things. If you got high skill, then your machine is going to you're going to be better at piloting it. There's no element of your machine itself that's going to make that make your rolls better. What is going to help are your tags. So every pike has the tags. Has like a basic weapon system, which is 2 damage, kinetic, and close. Kinetic means it's like physical bullets. Close means that it has to be with like immediate range, kind of like a normal like gunfight sort of range. They also have the vehicle tags, large, so they're about the size of like a 5-story building. I think was what it was before. Short range. Which is like the ability that they are able to, like the distance they're able to travel, and space flight, meaning they're capable of flying in space. All these tags are described later in the book. There's a whole section on tags and gives like explanations for what they mean. And then you get to pick your 2 upgrades. So you can pick for the Maverick, it's picked from defense systems, titanium plating, boost thrusters, overdrive capacitors, impact blades, ion cannons, and lance rifles. You get to pick 2, and they give you different stuff. So This game has armor and barrier. It's a little more complicated than other than like Dungeon World, which just has armor. Armor is just a stat that reduces the damage you take if you get hit, and you have 1 armor and you take 3 damage. In most games, you reduce in Dungeon World, you'll reduce the damage you take by 1, and you'll take whatever's left. This game, you have armor and barrier, and then all weapons either have a kinetic or an energy tag. Armor blocks kinetic weapons, barrier blocks energy weapons. So it's 2 separate stats. If you have no barrier and 3 armor and you get hit by a energy blast, you're going to take all the damage. Your armor's not going to help you because it's a laser. Versus if you have a lot of barrier but no armor, you might be able to block a bunch of energy blasts or a energy sword or something like that, but you're not going to be able to block bullets because bullets just tear right through the barriers. So it's a little bit more kind of flavor to it, because in a lot of Dungeon World games and Powered by Apocalypse games, someone will have like a lot of armor, and I can think of a couple games that we've played on this channel specifically, and they'll have like 2 armor, and that ends up just being a lot because every time they get hit, they reduce it by 2, and most things don't do more than like 2 armor or 2 damage at a time. So you either end up having everything having like a tag that allows them to pierce armor, or like magic so they avoid the armor or something like that, or the person never takes damage. So this is a good way to kind of mitigate that and provide some extra, like, I guess, I can't think of the word. Gives a little bit of variety. How about that? And then all these boost thrusters and overdrive capacitors just give you some tags. That's mostly like a flavor thing. Some players won't lean into that, and they'll be like, I don't really care about tags and stuff, but they're very important to the game. Any tag you have on your machine is something that you can use to justify the thing you're doing, or the DM can use to justify the thing they're doing against you. So like the boost thrusters give you the tag quick, which is going to allow you to move faster. So when you are making the argument that your machine should be able to outpace their machine or get there first or get to that thing without having to like roll for it, you can say, well, I have the quick tag, I have the boost thruster, so I'm going to use those. And the DM will use, or the forecaster will use the finicky tag if you were to fail on that roll, which is a tag that essentially means that your thing is your machine is harder to control. So you lose control of it, and they will use a move to enforce that tag on you. Overdrive casters have the overload tag, which is a tag that is described later in the book. You can essentially push your machine to a greater limit than it would normally be able to go to. Let's see. I almost have like the messy tag, the far tag, things like that. Like I said, they're all described later in the book. If you need to know what they mean, just go read those. And then leveling up. Has your bounty track here. You just check those off. So as you gain bounty, when you check all of them, you erase and take an advancement. A lot of them follow the same mechanics. You can take a couple more moves from your playbook. You can take some moves from some other playbooks. You can increase some of your stats to different levels. Some playbooks have the ability to increase some stats while others won't. You can see the Maverick here can increase their fight skill and luck. They don't have the ability to increase their mind, though. You can also take additional upgrade for your pike. And then once you've done 5 of these, you can take some advancements, some additional advancements. Like another upgrade, you can make a second character, you can change your character to a new playbook, increase another attribute, or retire and make a new one. So yeah, that's the basics of it. I'm just going to breeze through these and just show you what else is going on. You've got like the rookie, so where the Maverick is the good pilot, and following that archetype, the rookie has their own archetype as an inexperienced pilot. Somebody who's relying on their beginner's luck. They're one of these classes that they have to, you have to take this move and then you gain 2 others. Beginner's luck is the sort of the core component of the rookie. They set a personal goal whenever they set on a mission, something they've never done before. And while they're directly pursuing this goal, they gain +1 ongoing. And if you accomplish whatever that goal is, you take +1 bounty. So they're always trying to do new things. Have a couple of other moves like Fresh Out of the Academy, gain +1 mind, Nerd Alert, which gives them a bonus to when they're analyzing. They've got better. They can start with better gear. They can lean on their luck instead of being skilled in things, and roll plus skill for moves like stunt. And then their despair move is when they fall into despair, they describe a lesson they've learned, apply it to their current struggle, and it works. Again, leaning into their archetype. And their pike ability has to do with their machine being kind of newer than the rest because they are not as experienced. If they purchase any upgrades for their machine, they do so for half as much, which that's all in like the equipment section below. Let's see. Veteran. It's all about people that have seen battle and survived. Tactician, as the name would imply, they're the smart ones, kind of use their abilities to sort of predict what is going to happen in a battle and use their intelligence to stay 2 steps ahead. The gifted are essentially the like telekinetic. All the Gundam or most of the Gundam shows always have those characters that are especially kind of the newer anime have the characters that are have some sort of like psychic link or like telepathy or there's a word, I want to think of it, it's like telekinesis but with machines. There's a word for it and I can't think of it. That is what the gifted is. They have the ability to sort of like connect and to dive in their pike using their psychic powers, and to gain some benefits because of it. And a bunch of their moves will relate to that. Their machine especially has like a complex AI system that is more like sentient than others, and then they can like call their machine to them and like control it from a distance. The Brute, big smashy boy. That's all you gotta really know there. Their machine has the ability to not take damage when it runs into things, which I thought was super fun. It's called Juggernaut. So yeah, they can run into walls and not take damage from it. Whereas if like somebody else ran into a wall, the GM might have the ability to say like, okay, yeah, you take 2 damage to your pike because you just like smashed into a moon. If you're the Brute, you can be like, nope, I don't, because my book tells me so. So that's it's fun. Gambler, who's kind of like, I guess if we were talking about like Han Solo, where they fall, they might be more in the gambler side of things. Maybe a little more like Lando Calrissian. They use luck to get by the skin of their teeth. Have moves like Lucky Shot and let's see, Knife to a Gunfight. If they do battle up close and personal, you roll plus luck instead of roll plus fight. So just kind of stab wildly. And their machine is Notorious. And then the Mast, which this is the new playbook that I created that I'm actually very excited about. The Mast is just the edgy character with a mask that is in most anime and definitely every mecha anime. You always have the one character who shows up wearing a mask and is all edgy and in charge and has some sort of grudge to bear or something like that. That is the masked character. I had to pay tribute to that because it is so integral to that genre. They have the move Second Life, which is their secret identity. You get to choose one secret identity from like noble, soldier, politician, criminal, or commoner. They have a mission. for like revenge, justice, freedom, power, or love. And then if someone knows your secret identity, they can assist or interfere with you once per mission, as if they rolled a 10+. So they can sort of deliberately either assist you because they know your identity and they're able to help, or interfere with you because they know your identity and they're able to screw with you. And then so long as you are directly pursuing your mission, you gain +1 ongoing. So if your mission is for justice and you are attempting to arrest or apprehend the people that are responsible for whatever your secret identity is connecting to, or whatever it is you're trying to do, then you are able to succeed. And it can be like a general sense of justice that I'm trying to enforce the law or something, or it can be very specific to your needs. I kept it general here because I want it to be open for players to have that generally available, but that is up for a forecaster and a pilot to decide. They also can have a Fortress of Solitude, which is their secret lair where they can go and do their secret edgy things. That I kind of borrowed from like the Haven in Monster of the Week for that. And then had to make a mask reference in there because, reasons. Made some... They got a few other moves. Again, I liked pulling from like pop culture references and other things. I pulled from some oh god, I'm gonna just totally blank on the book All for One, One for All. Somebody's gonna yell at me in the chat in about 5 minutes about how I just forgot the Musketeers. Thank you. Jeez. Okay. They also have a cloaking device for theirs because, again, they're edgy and able to sort of hide their presence. That's where I took that from one of the basic special tricks that I advised. I think that's what the Ace had in our last one shot, is the ability to cloak their machine. So I just turned that into a little more powerful and well-defined ability. Okay. Basic moves, all labeled here. All these are pared down to use either fight, skill, luck, or mind. There aren't a lot of them. They pretty much cover all categories here. Doing battle is your fighting move. Disable is another more specific fighting move. Stunting is kind of your avoiding danger, getting out of a difficult situation, like a dexterity saving throw, or in Monster of the Week, there's I forgot what it's called now. Act under pressure. I think that's what it is. It's the same thing there. All the Powered by the Apocalypse games have them. Thank you, Savannah, for coming in with that one. I got it. I must have gotten it just when you did that, based on the delay. The analyze move is the ability to sort of assess their surroundings. Let's see. I also gave something for patching up your machine, and then provoke uses luck, and that is a manipulate move. Every Powered by Apocalypse game has some sort of, or most of them have some sort of assist or interfere move, which I kept. And then, spacing on that got off. You have your end of session moves and stuff for gaining bounty. Most of these Powered by Apocalypse games have, since Dungeon World, have had something where at the end of session you ask a bunch of questions, and for all the yes answers you get experience. So I kept that too. Tags, equipment, lots of stuff here. This isn't exhaustive, and I've mentioned this in the thing here. It's that this is the common types of equipment in the section of how to buy them. You can obviously create more and use these as a model for creating all sorts of things. There are weapons in the book that are in the upgrade sections that are not described here because they're exclusive to that playbook, but obviously something you could buy, presumably. I leave those as options. And then, okay, we got to the cool stuff. So I've been going for about an hour at this point, and we're at the Forecaster Toolkit. I'm going to do my campaign prep, or not campaign, a session prep for Monday, and we're gonna go through that for a little bit, and that should be good. But yeah, so that's pretty much the entire book. We go into I'm gonna go through all this stuff in a second, so I'm not gonna belabor the point now. And then at the end of the book after this is a little bit of like world building stuff, which I think this will be the section of the book that gets added to the most before it actually gets put out there into the world. So yeah, I am going to take a little break to stretch my legs for a second. And I'm going to come back to do the my prep work for this. If you are planning on playing in the game, I'll say this after I take my break. If you're planning on playing in my game on Monday, you should definitely tune out now. And if you are planning on watching on Monday, you can certainly watch this if you want, but spoiler alert for what is to come. So thanks for hanging out, and I will be back very soon. So thanks for sticking with me. Be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. Those of you that are still here. Let me see. So, like I said before, what I'm going to be doing from for right now, over the next like 30 or 45 minutes or so, got my Dr. Pepper, got a couple Oreos. I'm going to be preparing stuff for our game on Monday. The plan is I'm going to be running a one-shot for 5 players. Monday at about 8:30. So definitely come watch. It's going to be streamed right here on game nights. If you are a player in the game, I don't see anyone in the chat right now who has told me they're playing. Definitely leave. If you're going to be watching, though, if you don't want to be spoiled, I totally understand. You can, you are free to go. But we're definitely going to be, there are going to be spoilers for the game tomorrow. So anyway, this is what I have set up here. So I have a forecaster toolkit, which is just going to be everything that the game master needs to know in order to run their games. I've got a little notepad here to take my notes in, and we're going to get started. So this goes through some basics as to like what the forecaster does and how they should do things. There's a little section here on like the forecaster moves, which I took, which I borrowed from Dungeon World. And I gave little descriptions as like what forecasters should do and like the different things you can try to push, and it should be inspiration for you. And like if you ever in a situation as a DM, and you can use this for any system, I find this list, which again I took from another system. If you go pick up Dungeon World, because it is a great tool for anybody running any game, really, that if you're ever in a situation you're like, I don't really know what to do here, like the players are doing something that I didn't expect, or they messed up on something or something, like what should I do that will make this interesting, that can like push the narrative forward, without just saying like you rolled a natural 1 and your arrow bounces back and stabs you in the eye or something ridiculous like that. So this gives a list of like revealing an unwelcome truth, or using up their resources, separating them, which is a tried and true, I think, standard of most RPGs. Separate the players and watch them squirm. Can be a lot of fun. Sorry, this is my alarm. So this is a useful list. I highly recommend using it. I use it. I try to keep this with me in like any game that I run, just on a post-it note, on your desktop, or somewhere else. It's incredibly useful. So, creating missions. This game is going to utilize a similar setup to Monster of the Week. Monster of the Week is sort of broken down into mysteries, and it encourages you to follow their procedures for creating a mystery to follow. which is the nature of the Monster of the Week genre. Solving mysteries isn't really the nature of the mecha fighting genre. Not really a lot of mysteries to be solved. Instead, it's usually about the pilots running missions. If you watch Gundam, it's always about like the lead up to these missions that they're going to be running to like blow up a base or to steal a prototype weapon or to like there are too many examples, but there's some sort of mission. They plan for it, they prep for it, they get their stuff, they do it, and they usually something goes wrong, and then they have to scramble to sort of to work things out to fix it. That is what this game is going to follow. So I have 4 elements to a mission that will help a forecaster to create the mission that they're going to be sending their players on. And this should give a pretty good outline to everything that you need without giving you so much that you end up like railroading the players. This is a better way to do it than sitting down and being like, and this is what most Powered by the Apocalypse games tell you to stay away from, and I would recommend staying away from it in any game you run, D&D or anything like that. If you ever sit down and you go, okay, I think my players are going to do this next, and then if they do this next, then this is going to happen, and then if they're going to go here, and then this is going to happen. If you're running a game like that, successfully, that's great. Do that. But if you're running a game like that and you find you're always in a situation where like my players are doing things they're not expecting, I'm spending a lot of time monologuing and my players just look bored. They're complaining of railroading. They're always looking to do something else they don't have a plan for. If you're finding that to be frustrating for you, and that's not the way that you want to run your games, I recommend doing something like this. Which is come up with the basics, come up with the groundwork for it, and then move on, and watch it develop organically. So the 4 types that I have created here or the 4 elements I've created here are type, objective, the mission type, mission objective, mission complication, and the mission reward. And this is where we're going to start. So what I'm going to just do here is I'm going to just put type, objective. Sorry for the loud clicking. If it's too loud, let me know, and I'll try to move my setup away. I really like the mechanical keyboards, but they're terrible for streaming. Complication and reward. Looks like all that's on my screen. Okay, good. So I've got a few, and I'm going to follow this as directly as I can because this is the model that I made. If I want to see if it works for me to follow this and try running a one-shot using the elements that I have given. If you're running this, and I am the same way, if I'm a player and I'm given if I'm reading a book and getting a new system and it's telling me like this is how you make it, I usually go like I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do my own thing because I have this idea already in my head. But usually once you've gone through a few times and you're running out of ideas, leaning back on something like this and being able to rest on something like this is really useful. So I'm gonna try to use this just for the sake of proof of concept. So I've got a few example mission types here. An escort mission, which typically involves a group of pilots traveling alongside a dignitary or other important figure to prevent possible attacks. I did that in the last one shot. I don't want to do that again. I want something different. Transport mission involves carrying cargo to a specific location or secure payment for the goods. Similar to escort, but cows instead of princes. Combat will simply involve engaging and either capturing or destroying an enemy unit or group of units as designated by a faction. So you're given the missions by a faction typically, or an individual representing a faction, and you will follow. You will just be sent out to destroy something. It's probably the most simple type of mission. Assassination, similar to combat mission, but specifically killing an individual for like a political motivation. Capture and defend, is going to be securing a location. Anyone who's played Overwatch probably knows what this is going to detail, but you secure either securing like a facility, a location using force, or defend mission is going to be the opposite, preventing a location from being secured or from being captured. And then there are going to be air condition just kicked on. Let me make sure that's not being picked up. Doesn't seem like it's too loud. If you guys can hear the AC and it's loud, let me know. So a research mission is going to be assisting in the development of a technology, discovery an unknown substance or phenomenon, or a recovery mission is going to be to locate and secure an object, person, or otherwise which has been taken from or lost by a faction. So I have like an example that I've created here to like follow along. The example that I have is a mission being given by the Terran Independence Union, in which they are requesting the aid for pilots in accompanying a team of researchers to an asteroid field on the outer edges of space. Since the goal of the mission is to protect these scientists from dangers during the journey, we're going to call this an escort mission. You might be able to call it a research mission too, because it's assisting in the development of a technology or something. But if you're looking at its base component, it's an escort mission. And that's really what you should be looking at right now, is how do I distill this down to its most base component so I can understand like what I should be emphasizing the players to do. If you find that the goal of your mission is too ambiguous, then you should really specify, because nothing can stagnate a game more than the players not knowing what they're supposed to do. We've all played in games where the GM gives you some sort of tenuous goal by a shadowy organization or something like that, or you're blackmailed into doing something and they're just like, kind of go here and do this thing. There's this person and you can kill them, or you cannot, but I need this thing, but I don't really care about it. And like it just, the GM clearly has something in mind, but they are not broadcasting it strongly enough for me to really know what the hell I'm supposed to do. So giving clear goals is important. The goal can change, and you could tell a group that it is a escort mission, but in reality it's actually a combat mission. That's fine. I think that's totally acceptable to do as a GM, but you need to understand like what you are broadcasting to your players, because they're not in your head and they don't know what they're supposed to do until you tell them. So yeah, I don't know if we have enough people in the chat for some sort of recommendations. If anybody wants to jump in and say like, oh, this would be interesting, tell me and I'll work off that, because I don't really have any preferences right now. I'm leaning more towards like either a tried and true like combat mission, maybe a capture mission. It's going to be a shorter session, so I'm not going to have not a lot of time for role play and stuff. So having some sort of clear goal, there's not going to be a lot of like twists and turns. It's going to be pretty simple. Last time it was an escort mission, and the complication was that the person that they were escorting wasn't who they said they were, and like they had like a prince on board, or like a noble on board, and there was a faction that was pursuing them and trying to find this person, like attacked them along the way. So I don't want to do the same thing again. I think I'll go with a defense mission, actually. That might be kind of fun. Last time it was in space. This time we might be planet side. So let's go with defend. I haven't really talked about, so I'm going to backtrack a little bit and kind of go through a different page of the book here. So I have a section in the creating campaign section for like creating well-defined factions. And if you're running like an ongoing game, you're going to need people involved in it, and creating factions is going to be important to that. I have a setting that I'm using and that I've been using. It's the setting that's in the book. That's who I'm going to be using to sort of fill out the fiction here. So I'm thinking for the faction that they will be working for. Last time I had them working for the Independence Union, for the Carbon Banner itself. I don't know if I want them to be rebels this time, though. It might be fun for them to maybe work for like a corporation like Ryder, which is the corporation that was responsible for the development and manufacturing of most of the like equipment, weapons, machines, research that allowed space travel within the interplanetary sphere. Yeah, I think we'll go with that. So maybe it is we'll go with a Ryder mining colony that they are defending from pirates? Space pirates? I like pirates. Let's do that. Sounds fun. If you watch like Firefly and stuff, that's something that I really like, is the Reavers and the like bandits and pirates in space. It kind of has like a Western feel to it. I mean, Firefly is kind of like a space Western. So I like maybe doing something along those lines. So we're gonna say defending Ryder mining colony. Well, probably not specifically the colonies. Probably Ryder's probably hiring them to defend their interests, specifically the mines themselves and the there's a word I'm looking for, the plants that they have to. There's a word that I'm thinking for. It'll come to me later. Like processing. That's not the word that they use in mining. It'll come to me. So defending Ryder mining facilities from pirates. Yeah, sounds fun. The objective. So this kind of ties in. So the type and the objective kind of tie together. So once you've determined mission's type, you will decide the specific objectives of the mission itself. You'll base this on the faction that is giving the mission. For example, cargo transport in a mission given by the military group is likely to vary wildly from a mission given by a pirate group. So people are trying to defend different things, transport different things, and you want to kind of stick true to that fiction. So I have a list of questions here that you can ask yourself to help answer this and come up with this. So who's the faction or individual giving the mission? We have Ryder. They are a large, powerful corporation in the interplanetary sphere. What is the overarching goal of this faction individual? I mean, Ryder's goal, as with any corporation, is to make money and protect their assets. So they're trying to protect their assets at all cost. I kind of have this, if you played like Borderlands, kind of like the Hyperion Corporation, like they don't care about the people. Like they do like the corporate spiel and kind of all that stuff, and they say, here is my we care about you, and they have their fancy, like their pleasant jingles and slogans and stuff. But there's this underpinning of like, we're a company, we don't give a shit, we just want your money. So that's kind of where, not to get too political, but that's kind of where I see Ryder. They're just your average corporation on steroids. Where they hope to accomplish through this mission specifically. So they're defending a mine. I think it's pretty simple. The mine is under attack. It's been raided by pirates a couple of times. So they are trying to. I think they are not just trying to defend the space. They are trying to wipe out these pirates in the process. So they are looking at this is an overwhelming show of force. They are bringing in this case, they're bringing in 5 pike operators, which is a lot. I mean, that's a costly endeavor. These people cost a lot to hire. There aren't a lot of pikes in the sphere, and the fact that they are hiring 5 of them to do this job is that's a lot. So, and what are they willing to sacrifice for this mission? Anything except for their own interests. So, citizens of the colony, citizens of this mining colony, they're willing to see them dead in the process. They need their workers, but they can get workers from other places. People are cheap. The resources that are there in their facility itself, those are a lot more expensive. So the objective is using disproportionate force to, let's say, eliminate pirate threat, protect facilities and resources, and to eliminate pirate threat and protect facilities and resources. That's enough. Okay, so that is what's going on. So we're actually gonna kind of flesh that out a little bit more. So that's their general objective here. What are they specifically asking the pike operators to do? So they're defending the base, but I think Ryder probably has enough resources to actually defend the base itself. They probably have some cannons and guards, and so, but they are probably actually asking the pilots to locate the pirates in like their base operations where they're staying, because they've got to be close. Maybe we'll put this mining operation on like a terraformed like moon or something. So we'll say mining, or maybe maybe like a terraformed, like a larger terraformed asteroid, maybe in a bubble. So we'll like contain this, make it really small. Facilities are located in call it a terrasphere, terradome. Terradome? I like that. Terradome. I don't have a name. I think I have a name for the asteroid field somewhere. Actually, I'm gonna go over to my notes for the last time. So last time we had a session, I talked a little bit about that before. We had a location called the Alloy Fields. So I described in the game as a lawless frontier of the Pagana system outside the reaches of the League. The League is like the political um, the like aristocratic like political power in the triplanetary sphere. The Andromeda League is the name of it. So that might be fun to set it in the same place. So we'll call it in the Alloy Fields, and it makes sense too why this would be happening. I mean, Ryder's kind of overstepping. This is not a place where it's very well defended. They are providing for their own defense. They can't turn to the League for help, so instead they are hiring some Pike pilots. So they ask the pilots to locate the pirate leaders and eliminate them while defending the colony from additional attacks. Further attacks. Okay, that's simple. They're brought in to defend the colony and kill the pirates. Easy enough. So, complication. Now, this is the fun part. So, I could do a mission that was just type, objective, or reward. You go in, you kill the pirates, we do a couple little combat encounters, and then they get the reward for it. That would be a session. It would be a monotone session. I want to say boring. Sometimes that can be fun, just to keep things like straightforward. But if you watch this genre, you're gonna find that there's always some sort of complication, and if you don't, since we're following that genre, there's got to be some kind of complication, some sort of twist, something that's going to make the mission interesting. No mission goes off without a hitch, and I have that written right there. So what do we want the twist to be? So there's a number of scenarios that I have like pre-written here, or just, come with your own. So we have like someone leaked the mission details to blank. Blank has a stake in the mission's failure and are doing everything they can to sabotage the pilots. The true goal of the mission is something else. The pilots have given false information about something. Something is not what someone is not initially who they said they were and are actually blank. That's kind of the one I did last time, so it's not what we're going to do here. Mission was given under false pretenses. The true benefactor is blank. Once the pilots complete their mission, blank will have them killed. So I can probably write off a couple of those. I'm not going to do the one that I've done before. Don't want to retread that ground just yet. Not that I don't think you can have the same twist more than once, but I've only run 2 of these so far, so I don't want to do it again. False information, true goals being different are going to be fine. Like one of those would work. It's kind of what I'm leaning towards. Once the pilots complete their mission, blank will have them killed. It seems a little extreme that Ryder would have them killed afterwards, and I can't think of who else would have them killed. I'm not seeing this as some sort of shady, like black market dealing that they would just like murder them afterwards. So I'm not going to do that. Missions given under false pretenses. The true benefactor is blank. I don't think that one really works either. I could create an NPC that is actually benefiting from this mission. Or, that would be a good one if it turned out like, okay, this actually isn't a writer base. This is a base for somebody else. And they sort of gave the mission under some, an alias. That works out well for like a continuing campaign if you're going to like bring in an NPC that the players really don't like, or somebody who has like a bad history with the players. We don't have enough background here, and that would be a long twist to untangle. Uh, hmm. I think we're gonna go with the pods giving false information about blank, because here's what I was thinking. As soon as I started coming up with this, I had a few ideas, and maybe you had the same idea, maybe not. And this might be pretty. I think this is a pretty obvious idea, and I think this kind of goes along with the genre. I don't want to do anything super complicated. I want something that the players could actually figure out ahead of time. I like twists like that. I don't like to go with the thing that just because the players aren't expecting it and something they don't, they're not going to guess. I'm not that kind of DM that feels like I always have to have a gotcha for my players. I think that's a kind of a cheap way to run games a lot of the time. If you rely too much on as a GM on like stuff that doing things just because your players aren't going to expect it, that's a little too adversarial. And I'm not a huge fan of that. I like to do twists that are, things that people might expect and something that somebody could figure out. Maybe not right away, but with enough time, because I think players get a lot of satisfaction from figuring things out. I know I do. I know a lot of my players do. I assume that they like it. I mean, I guess they keep playing, so that's something. So anyway, I'm thinking the possibility of false information. And what could they be getting false information about? Obviously, it's the pirates. I think that's the logical step. Okay, so what is the false information? Initially, I was thinking, what if the pirates were not actually pirates? We could feed in some clues, like there aren't, if they start investigating, the pirates don't have ships. Where'd they come from? Why are they hiding why haven't they been found yet? If they're hiding amongst like the populace, maybe the pirates are actually the workers of the colony, trying to sort of rise up. So maybe this isn't so much an incursion as it is like a rebellion that the pilots are being forced to take part in. We'll maybe like start with an attack right away. They fight them off, destroy them easily. Like they're very much like better equipped. They start doing some investigating, and eventually learn that the pirates are not on their side, or on the opposite side as they thought. Maybe they're actually workers, and then the pods are left with the moral dilemma of do we take our pay and kill the pirates, or do we help them and overthrow this evil corporation? I know my players enough to know that they're probably going to lean into helping the underdogs. So that might be a good one to do. On the other hand, I have the thought that we could do the pirates were actually like, I don't know, former workers just looking to get their pay. That kind of falls in the same line. That's not that much different. Yeah, I mean, I could probably twist it into something else, but I like my first idea. I think we'll go. It's pretty classic. Like I said, only got a 2-hour session, so I don't got a lot of time to develop more than that. So we'll go with that. Positive and false information about the pirates. Pirates are actually the colonists trying to, overthrow. Maybe not overthrow. So trying to essentially like reclaim their homes. I imagine Ryder doesn't treat these people very well. They are probably underpaid, undermanned, mistreated, probably don't have access to a lot of basic supplies and materials, and Ryder obviously does. So, and then the reward. What have they been offered to complete this mission? And this is going to be important because if I offer them too much, then they're just going to take the money and finish their job. If I don't offer them enough, then it becomes a little obvious up front that there's something going on. Biggest incentive, and there's no dilemma if I don't offer them enough. They just say, okay, yeah, we'll help you. So most of the time they're going to be taking pay. So they've been offered some sort of credits for this. So I think we're going to say each pilot has been offered. It's a corporation. They got a ton of money. I don't think money is an object. I don't know, like 3,000 credits. That's a pretty good paycheck. I think there needs to be something else though. We could say like upgrades for their machines, or we could provide something else, some sort of ticking time clock, something else that they really need, like somebody's sick, they need medicine. I won't want to do that because that feels a little too real right now. I'm thinking maybe something along the lines of upgrades for their machines. Yeah, we'll just do Pike upgrades. Yeah, Ryder's the one that creates a lot of the mechs and the machines for most of the military use. So yeah, I mean that would be pretty good incentive for any of them. All right. We have our 4 elements: type, objective, complication, and reward. So we have our basic elements, and what we do next for a mission is we create our countdown. Now, there's a big distinction here. So what we are going to do for a countdown essentially lays out a step-by-step plan for how we see this developing. Now, this is different than what I said before about sitting down and trying to decide what your players are going to do. A mission countdown should try to track what you think the the enemies and what the players involved here are going to do if the pilots don't intervene. So if they're not able to accomplish their mission. This takes from the Monster of the Week game, which has the mysteries, which essentially you do the mystery has its own countdown clock, and as the game progresses, that clock is going to accelerate. And essentially you sit down, you say, what is this monster going to do if the hunters in Monster of the Week don't stop it? Same sort of scenario here. I recommend here that you do somewhere around 5 to 7 stages. More than 7, you probably should pare down. It gets a little bit lengthy for a single session. Most of the missions should be able to be completed in a single session. Less than 5 might be a little too short, and you might need more to fill out a 2 or 3 hour block. We're going 2 hours, a little bit on the shorter side. So I don't want to do too many. So we're probably going to do 5 stages. So countdown. It's really a count up if I really think about it, because I did it as stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So maybe I'll change that and we'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But that doesn't really matter right now. So stage 1. So again, we're looking at this from the perspective of what happens if the pilots do not intervene with this. So I shouldn't factor them in to my countdown here. This is just what is going to continue to happen. So we're already at the point where the pirates are attacking. So stage 1, pirates attack base, attack mines. There's still that word that I'm trying to find, and I can't think of it as going to bug. Refinement, I think, is the word I'm looking for. Attack refineries. Yeah. So the pirates attack the refineries. And are fought back by Rider. Mercenaries? These aren't the only people. The pilots aren't the only people that have been hired. I think there are mercenaries there that are more like directly employed by Rider. I think bringing the pilots in, bringing the pikes in, is probably overkill to this mission. Rider's going to destroy them, destroy the pilots no matter what, or destroy the pirates no matter what. Bringing in the players, it was a little bit of overkill just to like make a message, probably because Rider knows that the people that are doing this are the colonists themselves, and they don't want this to happen again. So bringing in these big, powerful machines to destroy them kind of shows we've got the money, we can do it. We can do this at any time, so stop. So pirates attacked refineries, fought by Rider mercenaries. Rider I'm thinking that one of the twists here, and this is going to feed into the complication a little bit, so I might develop this a little bit more, is that Rider is developing some sort of technology for the purpose of defending the base, that they will then use if the pods turn on them, is what they will use to sort of fight the pods and what they will be dealing with in like the end game. If the pods decide to go with the mercenaries, then, or if they decide to like kill the colonists, then probably going to be something that the colonists have that they're going to use to fight back, some sort of last ditch measure. I'll come up with that when the time comes. That'll be pretty easy. So Rider. We're going to say next, what they would do next. So if they're attacked, they fight them back. They know that these are colonists involved. Maybe some of the bodies are identified. They begin to sweep the colony, looking for, as part of like a witch hunt, looking for these rebels. Three. So they've been attacked. They begin to sweep. If there isn't anyone there, they have the resources to find them eventually. So they find the rebels and execute them. I think that's the next step. Hey, Raven. Doing good. We're actually like kind of reaching the end of this, so thanks for popping in. Just working on creating our one shot for tomorrow. So, spoiler alert. So first part of the countdown, which I realized I misspelled. Pirates attack the facility, fought back by Rider mercenaries. Rider begins to sweep the colony, hunt for pirates. Rider locates they locate the rebels and execute them. I think this is okay. So here's what I have my idea. So they locate the rebel forces, execute them. The next step, I think, in this countdown, would be that the rebels that are these pirates, which I'm going to keep using the word pirates so I don't get confused. And they don't locate all of them. Probably they locate one prominent figure. Yeah, it's all good. Well, I sort of did this last minute, so there wasn't like a lot of promoting for it. It's not an awkward time. This will be up on YouTube later if you want to watch the whole thing. Rider forces locate the pirate. So they locate a pirate leader and execute them. I think one prominent figure, like a catalyst, somebody that is going to sort of ignite the rest of the forces to want to do something about this, push them to an extreme. So desperate, the remaining pirates infiltrate the refinery. And then step 5. Pirates destroy the refinery, which, yeah, I think destroying the refinery is probably gonna have negative, like a lot more consequences. This is an asteroid; it's unstable, so it destabilizes the asteroid and destroys the colony. So those are the stakes we're working with right now. So our 5 steps, again, what would happen if the players were not there to intervene? Pirates attack. Rider sweeps the colony and hunts for the pirates. They locate. When the leaders execute them, this galvanizes the remaining rebel forces to infiltrate the refinery, to destroy it, which causes a chain reaction, destabilizes the asteroid, destroys the colony. That's what we're looking for as far as our countdown clock. And the players are going to be able to intervene at any point. They could step in around point 3 here and keep the pirate leader from being executed, which would prevent any of this from happening. I could still push that countdown clock if things go bad. If they save the pirate leader, but don't do anything beyond that, don't offer to help defeat Rider, or even if they do, it's probably going to lead to somebody infiltrating the base. Maybe Rider decides, well, we're not going to let these pirates have it, so we're going to destroy it ourselves. And that leads to the asteroid destabilizing. Then they have to evacuate or something. So there are a lot of ways that you can keep pushing this forward. It doesn't have to stop something, but this gives, if something like changes, but this gives like a really good like basis for us to work on. So I like this. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's good. So this, if you were running a game using the system, following this, you could follow these and these steps, make your mission, and then run this, and that's what we're gonna do. There are some steps below this, additionally in the book, to create NPCs, which I'm gonna do. I'm probably gonna do that off screen though, because I need gonna have to come up with names and stuff, and that's just gonna be a lot of name generators, most likely, or just me just spitballing them. So it gives a little details, who they are, what they do. I'm a firm believer you don't stat your NPCs. You don't need to in Apocalypse World, so that's really easy. You just come up with a name and give them some motivations. I don't even do that in like D&D and stuff unless absolutely necessary. I know some DMs that like give every NPC like a class and stats and stuff like that, and I that doesn't seem, that's not important, I think, to running a game. You What's important is giving them a character beyond just like a silly voice and a one liner. Thanks, Ruben. I appreciate it. So yeah, definitely do. This gives like a basics for it, some basics that you could follow. Uh, Obviously, run them in combat. You do need like armor, barrier, damage, that sort of thing, and we'll have to come up with that. I'm gonna probably do a little bit of that now. So I'm gonna need. Yeah, let's do that before we go. I can do that on really quick. So the pirates are going to be fighting. We're going to have like infantry that are kind of probably be involved in this initial conflict. And they're probably going to have a couple of like mechs or something, some like worker machines, something that they have used to weaponized and used, because that's going to be more interesting to follow. The players using their big powerful pikes to like shoot down scores of humans is going to be kind of grisly, so I want to give them something big to fight. So I have the stuff here: armor, barrier. Your basic pirate I don't think is going to have much. So I'm going to give the pirates 1 armor because they've got some pans that they've shoved under their shirts or something like that. They're going to have 0 barrier because they don't have that kind of technology. And as far as damage goes, I think they're going to have like basic handguns and rifles and stuff. Again, I don't think they're going to have blasters, so they're going to have I can actually go to the equipment section and we can cycle through some of that. That's why I created the equipment here, so you can just use that as reference. So a handgun does 1 damage, close kinetic. So handgun, 1 damage, close kinetic. Not much. Rider mercs are gonna be better kitted because they've been outfitted for such. I think they're also gonna have 1 armor. They are also going to have 1 barrier because they have some like personal shields and things like that. And then I think they're going to have blasters. So yeah, we're gonna blaster pistols. Because again, they've got the money for it. So that's 1 damage, close energy. Part of the reason why they're doing so well is because the pirates don't have the ability to sort of withstand energy munitions. So yeah, that's basically. I might play with that a little bit if we get into the situation. I want there to be like a big, like, merc or pirate or something that they end up squaring down with. I might improv somebody like that, but that's gonna be the basics here, and I'll just have those to sort of spitball with. Might have some grenades or things like that. Again, most of that I will just have this open and I will just improv as the situation demands, because you don't really, in this system, I don't really like put a bunch of figures on a field and say, all right, here you go, and let's like move around and stuff. It's open. It's like I say there is a small like battalion of these pirates moving in. I say there's like 20 of them or 50 of them or whatever, and they and then we just like play that out. So that would be what it is. The interesting part here is, so I've got the basics for the pirates and the Rider Mercs and what they look like and what kind of stuff they have. A lot of the other stuff I will improv as I go. I might feel like somebody has more armor, or somebody has more barrier, or a better weapon, or something like that. The better stuff here is going to be some of the machines that they have access to. So I think and this is some of the stuff I'm still changing because I've got to take out like the speed, handling, that sort of stuff for all of these. I won't do this all on, well, I'm going to end up doing this just because it's bugging me. So the machines that the pirates are going to have are going to be like worker mechs that they have like outfitted for combat. So we're going to say pirate mech is going to follow the same as worker mech. So it's going to be large, 1 armor, 0 barrier, heavy, overload, and then weapons. I'm trying to think what they might have. I don't even think they would have like guns mounted to them. I think we're essentially going to give them the some sort of basic. No, Siri, I'm not talking to you. We're going to give them some sort of basic, like, they probably outfit some sort of like blade thing onto the end of them to help. So it's going to be so I'm just going to put that on as blade because now it's me that description. I'll probably describe it as something like rusty and like it's looked like it's been like soldered on or like welded on to the worker mech arms. These worker mechs have probably been like sloppily painted. It's not going to do a lot though. I really, it's probably going to be also 1 damage. Close and kinetic. So not too different from what we're looking with. Yeah, so Ray, when we were talking about before, so what I'm working with right now is the pirates. We're looking at probably being the colonists that are in this like small mining refinery that work in the small mining refinery that are trying to overthrow this corporation Rider. And yeah, I mean, they're just dealing with what they got. They got rusty, jagged pieces of metal, and so they put those rusty, jagged pieces of metal on the end of their mechs, sharpen them the best they can, and they're working with what they got. Meanwhile, Rider, though, I think they're going to have, like, top-of-the-line, like, combat mechs, because they can. So Rider mechs, just similar to Rider Mercs, so I'm gonna have to watch that. Also large, same size, so they're gonna do about the same damage to each other. There's not gonna be any bonus there. It's also the same size as the pikes, so those will be the same. So large, they deal. So they also have 1 armor, 1 barrier, and then let's see. Yeah, they're gonna have weapon systems, which weapon systems are the sort of general tag or the description that I've given mechs that just have like guns and things like that. I mean, a weapon system could be anything as long as it only does damage at a close range. So you describe this like shoulder mounted like turrets or some sort of like gun that the mechs are using, or a blade, or just a punch, but it all does the same because that's the simplicity of this system. So it's also going to do 2 damage, because they're better. Close, kinetic, messy. So we've got all that written down for easy reference during our session when we get to that point. And then there's probably going to be some prototype weapon that I'm going to throw in there. Some like big... I did this last time too. So I don't know. Last time there was like this... one of the enemies that showed up also had a pike, and like so it was this big battle and stuff, like your classic Gundam battle when somebody, it's like, oh shit, somebody else finally has a Gundam that I can fight. And you know, those don't go so well when they fight each other, because they're on equal playing field, versus when you see the Gundams fighting through like regular mechs, it's just like slashing away and no big deal. So I may end up going in and just like creating a pike that has that pops up at some point to provide a little bit of extra challenge. But I'm also thinking I might keep this a little more personal. The pike fighting is going to be there because I want to see it, but I think I'm anticipating the pilots doing a little more fighting hand to hand on the ground this time. So I don't think I'm going to do that, because I think there's going to be a time when they're going to have to be like in the facility, like shooting people who have like, you know, going through the mercs and the mechs and stuff. So I think I'll just stick with that. So the that's about it. We have a complication. We have our NPCs. I'll come up with some names later. There's probably going to be some jackass that's in charge of the Ryder facility, and probably some jackass that's in charge of the pirates too. I don't like there to be likable NPCs, because these are supposed to be hard choices. And if everyone's likable, then... I mean, I guess if everyone's likable, then it's being a hard choice too. But I think it's, for this genre, it works out better when everyone's not likable. So that's probably it. I have other rules in here for like campaign stuff and creating factions, and there's this page that I've made with like where you can fill it out and give your factions and mark their progress, which goes up and down depending on how good or bad they're doing. Factions have victory conditions, things they do when they get to the point where they like are going to accomplish their big goals, and the players might have an opportunity to stop if they want to stop, or help if they want to help. They might have their death throws when they get to the point where things have gotten so bad they take their like last ditch effort, kind of like Ryder blowing up their facility if things get taken over. That's important for like a larger scale campaign, so you can keep track of it as a forecaster. But you're not gonna need that for like a one shot like this, so I'm not gonna worry about that. It's too much. But that's it. So one shot is going to be on Monday. I'm going to go ahead and call this here because we've got Slang 101 that's going to be starting in about an hour and a half. And I need a break. Go play some Animal Crossing, something like that. And I've been doing this for about 2 hours now, so which was longer than I expected. I think when I got on here, I told Savannah, I was like, it might be like an hour. So we'll see. But that's it. I hope this was enjoyable. I hope if you're watching this later on YouTube and stuff, I hope this was informative. It's been a lot of fun making this game. And like I said, I think I'm reaching a final product, something that I'm going to put out there. I just wanted to fine tune it first. I didn't want to put out there something that's like half-assed. So, because that's, bad for my vision, and I don't want to see a bunch of people complaining about a game that I didn't finish. So yeah, right now where I'm at is just polishing things up, adding a little more flavor text, balancing some things that need to be balanced, and then I'm gonna be looking for someone to do some cover art and stuff to make this game look pretty. That being said, if you're interested, if you know anyone that does, no, I don't have Doom Eternal, unfortunately. I wish, or I would play it. I'd also stream Animal Crossing if I had a capture card, but with the way things are right now, it would take me like 2 months to even get one in the mail, so I'm not even going to worry about that. But yeah, I might get Doom Eternal in the near future and stream that because it looks like a lot of fun. But yeah, looking to get some art done for this. If you know anyone that does like mech art, it's a very specific genre of art, and a lot of people I know just do like fantasy stuff right now, which is fine, and I really enjoy it. I love fantasy, but obviously the two aren't really connected, and so looking for it. But if you or anyone you know does, reach out to me, and I'm looking to commission somebody for that. So yeah, that's about it. Look for it in stores near you eventually. No, it'll probably go up on, I'll just post it on Drive Through RPG when the time comes. But yeah. Oh, and I'll probably be opening it up for like forecaster playtesting to look for other people to like run the game at some point. If you're part of our Discord, I will announce it there when I get to that point, and I'll send it to people with some non-disclosure agreements and that sort of stuff. Now that's all up on here, though. I mean, an NDA would be almost irrelevant, but at least with the agreement that you're not just going to share the PDF with all your friends. So yeah, any other questions before I get going? I'll give it a second, but thank you everyone for watching. Like I said, we'll be back on for Slang 101 at 4 o'clock, so come join us for that. I'll be playing there. We'll be back on Monday. This game will be run Monday at 8:30. Oh, that's sad. Go on Roll20. Lots of fun people there, looking to play games. It's hit or miss, but you might find some good people. I've found a lot of good people on there too. It's kind of what led me here. But yeah, 8:30 Eastern time Monday we'll be playing. This would be 8:30 to 10:30, so shorter game. And we'll be back on Tuesday with more AOS, assuming Barry feels better, which I hope he is. On Thursday for more Tales from the Loop, doing All Myths Are True, and then Saturday for Saturday Nights, which I also run D&D, and it's been a lot of fun doing some sports stuff. That's it, though. So thanks, everyone, for watching. Gotta get to my OBS stuff, and I'll see you later. Until then, goodbye, Internet.